So this will be episode number 1
Yes.
with the marketing guy and the King Viza, the founder.
Yeah, I don't love that nickname, but I'll take it.
You don't like King V?
No.
What do you like? What's your...
I like salami.
Salami?
Yeah, Tommy Salami.
Oh, okay.
Got that from Paige's family. I think it came from Owen, but I like it.
Yeah, Tommy Salami and Ryan Lemon.
Yeah. You need something. You
Yeah.
know? I mean, Tommy's a nickname in and of itself, but, because Thomas is my real name, but.
No, I like it. So what did you write down on your famous notepad that pretty much keeps everything in check? Mm-hmm. Like, I feel like that, since you've gotten that notepad, what is it called? Remarkable. Yeah. I feel like the efficiency has been at an all-time high. Would you agree?
Just more so the efficiency, but also the organization, because before this, it was just handwritten everything. Just like go through notepads, scanning words, scanning documents into the computer, transposing them into words and putting them into Asana. It's just it was a nightmare. In my opinion, it was a nightmare. Like having a digital pad that you could erase without having to change pages. You never run out of pages, and once you finish writing down all your notes, it'll transcribe it into text for you, and then you could send that right to your email. And it's also a much more professional way of having meetings. When you sit down with somebody that you're trying to when you're trying to win a new investor or get a new property management client, that to me, sets the tone right from the outset. If I do this, if I take notes like this, that I feel like that's a good way for them to think about how I run the rest of the business.
Yeah, I totally agree, because I've seen you now on multiple different occasions where we'll be, seeing a property, or we will be surveying the property with, the real estate, like the owner, the landlord, or we'll be at a property that we manage, and you're right there, and people kind of give it a look like, what is that thing? Yeah. It's not an iPad, it's not this, but I feel like that has been such a key element of growth. Even if it seems silly, it sounds silly, but it really has been.
Yeah. I mean, it just shows people that you're taking them seriously as well. You know what I mean? You're taking note of the key points. I still like to be very present during the meetings. That's why I even for the calls, I know a lot of people are using now Fixer, right? The AI agent, whatever, that jumps into all your Google Meets calls and takes automatic notes, summarizes them, sends you the action items from the end of it. Because then you could really actually focus on what the person is saying rather than writing down all the key points and what you're going to do as a result of the call,
I was just going to bring that up. Yeah. I was going to say that was the second thing, because that was the most recent thing that you told me about. Mm-hmm. And I feel like we should even show an example. Let's say that this is an Instagram post, show an example of what it does. Mm-hmm. That's actually not a bad idea. That would be a pretty fun thing to do. Me and you just have a conversation on the phone and see what it gathers from that, just to show the efficiency of it and what you kind of crack the code in a way to be able to get out these phone calls, and every single trigger word that comes through the call, you now can send that recap to any person within pretty much seconds, right?
And it's also a transparency, right? Because we try to pride ourselves in being one of the most transparent property managers. The other day, we had an issue with a contractor who, our board felt like they were being overcharged. So I, had a call with the people, and instead of having to write down on my notepad all the critical items from that call, I just recorded the whole thing, had it summarized with the action items and next steps sent to me via email. I forwarded that email to the board with my short summary of what we got to do next, and that's an hour of work easy. That was in less than 5 minutes. So I feel like anybody who's not taking advantage of stuff like that, you're just going to get left behind eventually. You just can't handle nearly as much as the average person who's using that.
Yeah, no, it's impressive. Is there any other elements of the business that you're utilizing AI with?
Well, definitely Property Meld. Well, we have Property Meld for repair and maintenance coordination and scheduling, but we also use Easy Repair, which is a US-based call center, which basically works inside of Property Meld, inserting melds and things like that. Anytime a call comes in or a meld comes in, it will get sorted based on priority level, based on what the repair is, right? Mm-hmm. If it's something that's considered discretionary, like something that doesn't even have to be done, it's just hey, a tenant saying, hey, I'd like this cosmetic improvement to be made. Can we see if the landlord will approve it? That's going to go to the bottom of the list and eventually get sent to the landlord in due time. But if it's an emergency, the system is going to recognize that based on, keywords or whatever, however it's being described. And that's going to get elevated directly to either me and my team or to the authorities if it's something really serious like, a burglar breaking in or a fire alarm going off or, something like that. So I think that is really good because it basically automatically prioritizes based on how relevant the issue is. You know where to focus your time and attention when you're working on a repair side of the business,
Yeah. So I was thinking as you're saying that, like, I want to kind of do like a role play in a way. So I'm going to act as though I'm somebody that owns 5 properties right now. I own 5 properties. One of them is a 3-family, and the rest are 2 families. And I want to hand over my whole portfolio to you, to Viza Property Management, for you to manage the property. Respond to me in the way of how would you say you're going to do it as far as percentage wise and what information you would need for something like that.
Yeah. So it's going to be a collection fee anywhere between 6 to 9% generally, I would say, based on the volume, based on the rent roll, based on the condition of the property, the location, all those things factor into how much work it is for me and my team. But as far as onboarding, it is, quite a list, because there's a lot of things that go into it. From a financial standpoint, I would need bank account information, where you want the money going to. If the money is coming to me into my escrow account, and then I'm sending you the balance of the funds after operating expenses, or if you have your own entity account, in that case, I have the ability to send funds directly to you without it having to pass through me at all, right? So I'd have to collect all your financial information. I would have to secondly collect all the access information, like where are the keys, what keys do you have? How do I get access to all the common areas, which is going to be the basement, the common area hallways, any garages, like things like that. Do we have copies of keys to all the actual apartments to get inside? Because, first and foremost, you have to be able to get access to the common areas, especially the basements where all the utilities are located, to make those emergency repairs. So that's like kind of first and foremost. Then I would say all the tenant information. I would need ideally first and last name and contact information of everybody. That's because the first thing that we do. We send them out our tenant communication protocol so they know exactly how to reach out to us in the event of emergency, even while that onboarding process is continuing and they're getting accustomed to signing into our systems. As long as they know how to contact us in emergency, that's the most important thing. So with that tenancy information, we also look for the leases and any special side agreement, because a lot of times there's side agreements where, okay, someone's lease is $1,500 a month, but they get $500 off a month in exchange for handling the garbage, cleaning the common areas, act as almost like a mini superintendent for the building, right? So I want to know, nitty gritty, what all the side agreements are, if any, associated with those properties. And then I also asked the landlord to, from the time that the property management agreement starts, prepare not to speak to the tenants whatsoever at that time. No, I give them a message to send to their tenants, letting them know as of this date, Viza is going to be taking over. And all correspondence is going to go through them going forward. Because if not, we've had so many issues in the past where a tenant will say, oh, I had a separate conversation with the owner and this is what he said, right? So that kind of undermines like our responsibility, the responsibility that you're handing over to us. And at the end of the day, you're hiring a property manager, so you don't have to take those phone calls, right? So, there's no point of you hiring us and then continuing to do what you were previously doing.
Yeah, I feel like that, to me, every time we're talking about what is the biggest pain point for a landlord, I have to say that for me, it would be tenant communication. I feel like that is one, it's the most interaction that you would be doing in a property management role is being in contact with the tenants or being in contact with the different maintenance repair people to make sure that the problems are being solved. But it's like, I don't think anyone truly understands how much weight gets taken off their shoulders when they do hire a property manager, from whether it be the tenant communication or having to follow all protocols or following like the DCA inspections or the lead test inspection. And then from all of those, then having to schedule the repair person or the inspector and then handle the actual scheduling with the tenant and make sure that it fits in every single person's schedule. Mm-hmm. Can you maybe talk a little bit about what you actually do relieve and maybe some testimonials that you've heard in the past from certain clients that you've done it for? Mm-hmm. Like, have you heard that from anybody, the things that you relieved them of?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is, well, firstly, I like to say my favorite client, honestly, is probably the person who has owned the property for at least a short period of time, because those are the people that can fully appreciate what it takes to competently manage a property. And so when they give that responsibility over, they they put a higher value on your services than somebody who just bought a property for the first time and is immediately, hiring you. Although I'm not turning that away, I'm just saying, I could appreciate that they know what it takes to manage a property. But I would say the biggest thing, well, one of the biggest things, honestly, is probably the governmental compliance. Yeah. Just keeping your property in compliance with the city, with the county, if it's a Section 8 voucher through the county, or just any Section 8 agency, right? They conduct annual inspections. Mm-hmm. And then with the state as well, anything that's 3 units or more, you have to stay in compliance with the state. And a lot of times when you first buy a property, you'll update the contact information to the DCA, and that may trigger an inspection being done sooner than it was anticipated to have been done. And so, the latest one, sometimes it's very simple, all easy things that you'd want your property to have done, but sometimes it's much bigger than that. For example, a mixed-use property, it was like 6 residential units and 3 commercial. We had the inspection done, and it has a huge old wooden fire escape. And it's in pretty good condition, but they want to make sure that it's, you have a load test done by a structural engineer, and whatever upgrades have to be met to make that thing completely safe, they want to see it happen, right? So I think the average person might have a little bit of difficulty identifying a structural engineer who's going to do a load test at a reasonable cost, and then finding a contractor who's going to be willing to do that work. Because a lot of contractors may not want to have anything to do with the job like that. They may only want to install new because they may think it carries some liability, making repairs on an existing structure that they didn't build to begin with, right? So my team in that scenario was able to find a structural engineer who was able to confirm that with certain improvements, columns, whatever the exact scope of work, it was going to be, safe. The DCA had signed off on the plans that we wanted to do. We submitted the permits. I found a contractor who was willing to do that scope of work for a very reasonable cost. And now we're getting that done actually right now as we speak for re-inspections that's going to happen in the end of April. And the thing is too, as someone doing these repairs, the initial re-inspection date was like 30 days out. It would have been almost impossible to have done everything that we're doing within that time period. But we know just from the experience and we have relationships now with a few of these inspectors that we can reach out, explain to them the situation, and ask for an extension for another 30 to 60 days, and they're almost always going to give it to us, because we know how to ask, and we can show them the workflows of what it takes to do what it is that they're asking us to do, right? So I think that one of our investors on that deal, he really appreciated how fast we jumped on that. He was happy to see it moving forward, because not only do you want to keep the property in compliance, because these are all things that you should do for the safety of the residents of the building, but there are massive fines attached to it too, like on that building, the fine for them coming out and seeing that was the existing condition was like $1,700, and every time they come back, generally speaking, they'll find doubles, Yeah. So, you could quickly find yourself in a really bad situation. So that's why no matter what, you have to stay in compliance. And that's just the state, right? If you have Section 8, it's not as intensive. It's usually confined to the inside of the apartment. And that's like smoke detectors, paint, easy things. But probably one of the bigger things is, depending on what town you're in, the certificate of occupancy for people moving into apartments. And that could vary. It really vary in what you have to have done. For example, one big thing we had to do recently, we had a lolly column in the basement, which is like, temporary support beam. That was seen. And so we had to put in a permanent one. And so, that doesn't seem like a big deal, but you have a tenant who's signed a lease, they're ready to move in. And then because generally speaking, we submit the tenant information with the CO request. Yeah. And then they'll come out, do the inspection. They identified that. And the workload isn't that much, but the city identified it and they want to see permits taken out for that job. So you have to submit, get plans. That's going to take at least 2 weeks. Submit the permits, wait for the permits to come back, do the job, have it re-inspected by the building inspector, and then have the CO re-inspection done. And that could take a ridiculous long time if you're not hustling to get every step along the way done as soon as you can, and or you're going to lose your tenant if you don't keep them informed and offer them credits along the way, depending on how long it takes.
Yeah.
But
if you're trying to do that all by yourself, or you're trying to delegate that to your girlfriend, fiance, mother, someone who is on your team, it's like Viza has a whole entire dedicated system to making sure that every little piece matters and every little inspection is taken care of. Because if you're doing that solo, or you're doing that with that kind of like broken team in a way, it's just not going to get done.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that would be the biggest headache in the world for me. That's why I always say to you, like, if I ever am investing in properties, I'm just 1000% giving you the business. Because what is that 6%, 8%? What is that really going to be over, a year? I don't, you know what I mean? Like, if my rent roll is at 3,000, that's worth it to me every single month. Like, you pay in just groceries, if you go to the laundromat and you go out to dinner one time, like that, it's going to be that price.
Yeah.
Like,
and it's not even with the money, even if you're going to be netting a little bit more, even if we're not doing anything to create additional ancillary revenue or saving money by not getting fines from the DC or the city, things like that, or from the lost revenue of not having them leased because of the reasons we just stated, you're wasting a lot of valuable time doing any other revenue producing activities that you could be doing, right? I mean, if you have a business, it's very easy to see that return on your time. Even if you have a W-2, I mean, a lot of people have, side hustles now. You could easily do something to replace whatever it is that you might be paying in property management, because it's just not the most efficient use of your time. If you have 1 to 3 or 4 properties, like taking every tenant call, everybody has a direct line to your cell phone, constantly getting interrupted over the course of the day when you're with your family or trying to work and get things done in whatever your career is. It's just a huge waste of time.
Yeah, and it's so annoying. Like, it's a really huge inconvenience.
Yeah.
I mean, you were there at one point, realistically, and that's why you opened up the property management company, so that you could systemize the whole entire thing. Now, you already learn the mistakes so that people don't have to make those too. Like, you always say that every time we're talking about it, or I'm talking about it with Tyler. So he's like, we literally were doing this on our phones. Every single tenant had the personal numbers. Yeah. And then you start feeling really attached to these people, to where you don't want to disappoint them. You don't want to let them know that, maybe the thing that they requested is not going to be done because you are the owner and you don't necessarily want to fix like a cosmetic thing because you're not going to cash flow that month. It's like, when you're doing that with your personal number, it's kind of scary in a way, because they could just track you down. They could do all these things. I feel like that is even another part of it, is like the security and the idea of, I don't know. It's like, it feels like risk management in a way when you hire a property manager. Yeah. Well, as an investor, as somebody who is a landlord, it's like you're just really taking all your risks and you're lowering them. Yeah. But it's also like not fair to the tenant. I mean, like they don't want to, they also don't want to be bothering you. But usually like 90% of the time, what people are reaching out to with are legitimate requests. And they don't want to be reaching out to an individual person who doesn't know any people who can fix whatever it is they're asking about, or can't answer a question about what's in their lease. You know what I mean? Like because it was signed by a real estate agent that they hired just to put the tenant in place. And also, if something happens to me, I'm sleeping, vacation, just in a meeting where I absolutely can't answer the phone. Like, it's not right that they have to wait until I'm back. Whatever communication method has to be in such a way where somebody's going to be available, or more than one person's going to see whatever it is they're reaching out about. Yeah. Because that's true. If not, in emergencies, they're left to their own resources or the authorities. You know what I mean? That's really it. Yeah, that's crazy. So what else do you have on that remarkable tab? I was going to talk about commercial space, how we recently started
buying mixed use and managing mixed use properties, and how much more difficult it is to find commercial tenants than it is multifamily, and how people might overestimate how easy it might be to replace a business when those spaces become vacant.
Yeah. How many spaces right now do we have available?
Well, right now we manage like 10 different commercial units, and how many do we have available right now? Like 4.
Yeah. So I guess what do you notice in that, and like what's the difference between trying to fill just a normal unit and trying to fill a commercial?
Yeah. Well, residential, as long as it's in generally a safe area, you have, the apartment's in good condition. It's not in a, you're always going to find somebody for apartment as long as it's priced correctly, as long as you're not over market. But commercial, what I've seen, there are a lot of factors that go into it, especially from the highest level economy, right? How much does it cost to borrow money, maybe start a new business venture, down to more specifically, more importantly, in my mind, the actual location of the building. What's the traffic, the average daily traffic there, how much foot traffic in there? Because those two things alone, because I don't do commercial investing or management of big office buildings or big malls or regional, anything like that. I'm talking like downtown, small retail, commercial office stores with multifamily above. That's like basically what we do. And those merchants, whoever, like, it's extremely important for them, for people to see, a lot of people to see their business, the signage. They're making a major investment. And a lot of people in today's world can just work from their house. So if they're going to have an office space, it's going to be because they have to see clients, right, to conduct whatever business it is that they're doing. Or in addition to needing that real estate to operate out of, they're using it for advertisement.
Yep.
Really, you know what I mean? They want as many eyeballs on their business as possible. And sometimes the best way to do that is brick and mortar,
Yeah, I feel like you learned that element even more when we were looking about the franchising opportunities and seeing that some place like a Jersey Mike's or a Jamba Juice, they actually require, in order for you to even submit, they require for that location and address to have over 100,000 cars pass it in a day. You're like, what?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, of course, this, town that we're in, that it's on a downtown, maybe it's 15,000 cars that pass in that day, maybe. Yeah. And then you start realizing that, even local businesses are thinking in that manner too. Like, you don't want to be just in this random spot that the visibility is kind of low.
Yeah.
It would be like putting like a billboard up in like a dead end street or something like that. It just makes no sense. So, I feel like that really opened just our eyes of thinking in that way, where, we might have thought that in the past, but when you see those actual numbers on a legitimate franchising place like a Jersey Mike's, you're like, oh, okay. Yeah. Like, okay, we're not quite there yet.
And not only that, but with the businesses, every deal you make, it's a business deal. Whereas rental real estate, like apartments, everybody needs a place to live, and they can expect to pay that market rent no matter where they go, right? And just generally speaking, there's like a low supply of apartments right now, especially in some of the areas where we're managing the property. But on the commercial side, the tenants are in the driver's seat. You know what I mean? That is for sure, especially in some of the areas where we're investing in, because those commercial markets are not exactly like thriving. So not only do you have to wait for them to come in and decide that your space is suitable, but they have multiple options, and now it becomes, who's going to give you the best deal? How many months of free rent are you going to give me? What kind of build out are you going to give me? Right. So not just building out, sheetrock, give you the bathroom, all the whatever, but maybe are you willing to split a certain amount of that renovation with me in exchange for, a lease that's going to guarantee, right, they're going to be there for however many years. But you're dealing with a business person on the other side of the table who's trying to make just as good of a deal for themselves as you are for the space, Yeah,
it's tough. Commercial stuff. Because I know it myself, just being a commercial tenant. You're always just trying to fight for the free month. Yeah. Like, one thing happens. It's like, oh, the lights were out for 2 days. Yeah. And you're like, free month. Yeah. Like, I would request it all the time to my landlord. He's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
He's like, the lights were out for 2 days. I'm like, well, that affected my business. And he's like, all right, yeah, show me how much it affected. And then you realize pretty quickly you're 25 years old and you don't have any of the things corrected, like accounted correctly for. And he's like, yeah, you have no proof. So you go screw yourself. You know what I mean? And then also it's tough in the way of there's really no limit on what they could increase your lease.
Yeah, there's no limit on, but generally speaking, from what I know, what I've seen, there'll be like 5 years with like extension options on top of it, right? So those businesses are protected from a ridiculous increase. But at the expiration of those leases, especially when those businesses have a proven like have been there for a very long time and their customer base identifies them with being at that location, then I feel like the tables turn a little bit and the landlord knows they don't want to move. No. The cost of them moving is significant. And when they move, it's very likely they're not going to be able to find something like that close, or would they keep their entire customer base?
Yeah.
You know, but you got to get there.
Hey, these places are going to be filled with great tenants. I know for a fact. Like on King Street, that I know for a fact it's gonna hit the right moment where that perfect person is gonna walk in. Like I really hope it's a coffee shop.
Oh yeah, me too.
I feel like it's going to be. I know that's just a shot in the dark, but I do feel that something is gonna come.
Yeah, I mean, worst case scenario, you could open something there.
Hey, we'll see. What do you think?
I don't know, whatever pays the most. One thing I want to talk about, obviously we recently started managing HOAs in 2024, and that's something we're looking to do a lot more of, specifically in the Hoboken, Jersey City area, just because that's where we're based and there's plenty of inventory there. So we're looking to pool our resources and, gain a little bit from that economies of scale. Not only is our office there, but 2 of the team members, live in Hoboken, so it makes things a lot easier, just logistically speaking. But yeah, I think that we're really equipped to handle HOA, and we offer a certain level of transparency that others don't. So we provide, everyone provides monthly financials, right? But I think that we provide them really fast. Like always on the first business day of the new month, you're getting the trailing month financials, and not just income and expense statement, but everything, right? The cash reports showing what happened in the bank accounts, in the escrow account, in the operating account, showing the balance sheet, how things are changing, like your income statement currently based on what it was in your annual budget that you had set in the beginning of the year, as well as any delinquent owners and any accounts payable, any bills that are outstanding, which you haven't paid yet. And not only that, but we give our board members the ability to pull their own financial reports at any point in time. So you could wait, to the first business day, and we'll provide you everything in one package altogether for the previous month. But if you wanted a snapshot and say like, okay, how many owners owe money right now, and who is it? You could do that. Who's in violation? Because all the violations of people get identified within there too. That's in there. Whose parking space is parking space number 14? That's all in there as well. Like all these little things are right at your fingertips. You don't have to waste time waiting for us to provide it to you when you reach out, So I think that, and secondly, I think that a lot of these HOA property management companies are like huge, like conglomerates, and HOAs are kind of their main business. And, if that's going to be your main business, that really, you have to have a ridiculous number of units under management. And when you scale to that size, you just lose the customer service. You're probably using AI chatbots, you're probably farming a certain amount of communication overseas, and you're just not getting what I feel that you're getting when you hire Viza. Because
and like especially in the Hoboken, Jersey City market right now, you're paying a pretty decent amount to live in any apartment there. So you're expecting the best.
Yeah.
Like you feel as though you're like high end already living in a Hoboken area. So when somebody's not responding, or you're talking to somebody overseas and they're not understanding the area or the market, you're going to feel a type of way about it.
Yeah.
So like having that local person, you already understand what these people expect. So
yeah, because I mean, it's one thing when a certain contractor, a specialty contractor, is not immediately available to take care of something relating to sprinkler, relating to elevator, relating to siding, relating to a leak. Like that is going to happen, unfortunately. from time to time. But as long as you're communicating with the owner and communicating with all, parties involved, things are going to go much smoother because they just want to know that someone is working on it. Someone, values their home where they live and have made a major investment, and then it's going to get done. I don't want to downplay what goes into property management because I do think it's like a professional industry and it takes a lot of work to do it competently. But at the end of the day, it's just like anything else where it's just like working really hard, being extremely detail oriented and communicating properly to the people who have hired you.
What makes you, like, honestly, I'm asking you super genuinely because I've never asked you this. What do you think makes you that guy? Seriously. Like, you are probably the most detail oriented person that I know. I always am asking, how do you do all this in a day? How do you think about all these systems in place? Where do you think that actually comes from for you?
I mean, probably just a frustration of, I've been on many sales calls. I've done many, I guess had a lot of different experiences where a lot of different things were spoken about in a meeting and just never followed up on, or a lot of times what people have sold me weren't what they ended up, being. So I feel like I try to, that's why I'm constantly writing stuff down, especially when I have those meetings with the key points. Like when I follow, even if it takes me a long time to follow up on something that's not, time sensitive, when I do follow up, 30 days, 60 days later, it shows, wow, this person, he went, he looked back in his notes, did the research that I had asked him to do, followed up on it, took the time to send me an email, explain his position on it. I was like, wow, how many people are doing that in today's world? Still, I feel like not many. And I feel like that's what makes the difference. People just want to know that they can count on you,
Yeah, no, because I think all the time, I'm like, there is so many things that are on your plate that you're doing. And it's just like every single time it's diligently laid out. It's put into Asana correctly. It's followed up correctly. And I'm just like, man,
well,
like one day I'll get there. Mm-hmm. And like, I think that when people work with you, they immediately see that. Mm-hmm. And they see that, like, the Viza difference. Yeah. That is the difference, is right there, is the constant just follow up and constant just inputting the information.
Yeah. And it's not like that, not like I want to operate like that. I just feel like there's no other way but to operate like that, because there's such a massive amount of correspondence that gets bounced back each and every day between the tenant to the contractor to the owner, to things that we say. So if you're not, grabbing that key points of information and putting them into the right task, organizing it correctly, you're setting yourself up for failure. And the thing is, I'd rather, if anything, things get slowed up because they're going through the right channels, because that's easy. Like, you could always hire more people, but if you're unorganized, like, there's no saving you. You know what I mean? You can't get the information. You can't follow up on things. If one person on your team isn't there for whatever reason, you're out of luck until they get back,
Yeah. It is crazy too, because we have a whole entire team member that is in Florida. Mm-hmm. And it's like, he's the second most diligent, to like just immediate, inputting stuff and making sure everything is good to go. And it's like, if you do have that system, you literally can do it from anywhere.
Yeah. And
if you don't, you're just going to be shit out of luck, like, completely. It's gonna, and I feel like I'm learning on a daily basis too, where, like, I'll be talking with Justin or I'll be talking with Steven or something like that. And I'm like, they'll be like, oh, well, what is this? Or where is this? And I'm like, I don't have that in a system yet. I don't have it correctly, like, written out in the way that it eventually becomes this whole entire delegation that is so seamless and so easy. So I'm like, I'm finding that now. It's taking a while, but we're getting there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just like the unsexy thing that nobody ever wants to do. Nobody ever wants to work on a system. If you're in a place where you're just like dealing constantly with like things that are both urgent and important, that's all you're gonna do. You know what I mean? But the hard thing to do is put the urgent, like, focus on the things that are not urgent but very important, because those are what's going to multiply your time. Like, for example, right now we just closed on a property with a bank who required us to use their checking account to receive the funds and make mortgage payments out of. They want to see that there are deposits being kept with them in exchange for giving us the loan. Like that's normal. But I had never put that bank account into Buildium, right? And so every single month, I would have to get all the funds, and I would have to do a mobile, because this bank was really far away. I wasn't going to drive to it. I would have to, in multiple transactions, because there's maximum amounts that you could put via mobile deposit from the Wells Fargo account in this new bank's account every single month. And it's like very tedious. First, you got to do that. Then you got to go on Buildium, the accounting software, and update. So like the path of the cash flow makes sense, because I got investors on this deal. They got to know Tom's not just moving money around. He's actually using it to pay the mortgage. So I was like, okay, I had to sit down, finally draw the line after 3 months and be like, I'm onboarding this entity bank account onto Buildium. Chandler did this. Submitting a ePay application, and I'm going to get this thing onboarded so that it can accept all rent and operating expenses going forward, because that is a 1 hour task. Every single month, it's a 1 hour task. Now, but it was a 1 hour task probably for me and Chandler to make that conversion, but now it's done forever. You have to think about everything that you spend an hour or two doing on a regular basis and how you could cut that out forever if you can, you know?
Can you give me right now, I just want you to basically to like show the audience or show Instagram, can you just give me a quick rundown of who's on the team, what they do currently, and a highlight about them? Quick hitters.
Yeah. Well, I mean, myself, I just call myself like managing member. I like to think I really get involved, and I like to think I assist everybody with what they're doing and try to be like a guiding force and what they should be focusing their time on. But what I like to focus on personally is like owner communication, like some of the vendor communication, a lot of the financials, like the financial reporting, as well as like owner distributions, right? So certain parts of the financial side, and maybe setting rents, and determining what maybe scopes of work should be on renovations, how much money should we invest in these properties in effort to put them in the right place, maybe speaking with inspectors, all this like outward facing things where like, because I like to show Viza in the best possible light when speaking externally. I take a lot of the new client calls anytime we have prospective owners. So that's a lot of what I do. We have Tyler, who does basically all new leases, lease renewals, and rent collections. And he's almost like on an island, because he's been doing it for so long, and it's very systemized. It's like these are the parameters that you have to meet, or this is the rent, and so this is why we're going to increase the rent to X or Y upon the expiration of your lease term, or this person's not paying rent, so we're going to have to file an eviction by this date, or this person's paying rent late habitually, recommend them for any legal matters. So he's able to really do that, and I trust him fully to do that on his own. So I don't have to work as closely with him because he's very comfortable operating independently. And then we have Chandler. Chandler started by doing all the repair and coordination. He just jumped right into everything. He's been like a superstar ever since he joined. And very recently, ever since we converted to doing all of our income and expense accounting on Buildium, our property management software, instead of Google Sheets, which was like an archaic, ancient way of doing business. He's pretty much been handling that almost exclusively and making sure everything goes the way it should be. Any expenses are accounted for to the properties themselves, rather than Viza just putting out a tremendous amount of money trying to get reimbursed every month. And then we have Christy, she's basically like office administration and there's a lot of things out there that are not having to be done on a regular basis, where it just takes somebody to call in and get it done. Like, for example, number one is she does all the move-ins and move-outs, making sure that utilities are put into the tenants' names when they move in, so they're not in our name. That's the annoying part. Or when they move out, making sure the utilities are put back into our name so the utilities don't get turned off, because you don't want that to happen. You don't want burst pipes from frozen, stuff like that. But one of the things that Chrissy does, miscellaneous, she'll call the mortgage servicers, which are absolutely terrible. I hate them. I haven't found a good mortgage service yet. They don't pay taxes, they don't pay insurance, your taxes become tax liens, your insurances are about to get canceled because they don't pay those things. And then Christy, she has to, fight her way to get a person on the phone who has the ability to help her, identify the loan numbers, tell them the policy, whatever that's going unpaid, and resolve that issue with them. And it has to get resolved, because if not, you can't let a tax lien continue to grow, and you can't afford to have a property without insurance. So she handles like various miscellaneous tasks like that, where that just very time intensive and cumbersome,
Yep. So tedious.
Yeah.
So tedious.
And then Ryan runs his own business now, but he's like an extension of the team for marketing and all things creative, and basically like brand development and putting ourselves in front of people, and like coaching us on, things that we should do, such as this podcast, the regular Instagram posts, working on getting Google reviews for our clients, contractors, vendors, whoever we do business with. Doing the MailChimp campaign, we mail to people on a weekly basis, letting them, just quick tips in property management, keeping them informed. And then a lot of times you do take photos of the apartments anytime they become vacant. Go down to Gloucester City every now and then with Tyler, take photos of the progress, all those things that were going on. So, it's a good mix of people, and everybody knows, what they're responsible for.
Yeah. No, it is a nice little power team. And like,
Yeah.
I feel like, I really think one of the main highlights of the Viza team is the fact that Tyler and Chandler, they're brothers.
Mm-hmm.
You and Christy are brother and sister. And then I'm the extension of the team. We grew up, playing all sports together. Me, you, and also with Chandler and Tyler. And like, I feel like that is something that we kind of let people know, but I really think that's a huge selling point for the Viza team, is the fact that it really is a family business. Like, there's no other way to put it. It's all family members that work in it. Yeah. And to me, that's like the coolest part about it, is that all of us get to hang out on a pretty much, weekly basis, where you say all the time as a joke, you're like, well, I don't hang out with anybody unless I work with them. But it's the truth. Yeah. And like, we all get to be in each other's presence and be able to create really cool things. Yeah.
And a lot of property management companies, in my opinion, are revolving doors, where, you get someone, you hire with a big company, and then you get assigned a manager, and then, 6 months later they get reassigned somewhere else, or they quit, they get fired, they move on. Anything could happen, but as of right now, there's been no turnover with the people that are working with us, and I don't think there will be anytime in the near future, as long as everyone wants to continue working in the industry. And I mean, maybe some people say or think, it's a small family-owned company. I mean, they could think whatever they want. I just feel like we have the best possible team we could have assembled so far for the size of the company. And I think that it's only a benefit. And I think that it'll show by us getting the kind of client. Because if you're hiring someone just for price, or just because they have experience doing it for 20, 30 years, and they have thousands of units under management, then maybe, we're not the right fit for that person anyway, don't really care.
No, we're going to attract the clients that have very similar, they're similar to us. And like, that is going to continue to happen. And that's what's going to allow the workflow and all of these relationships to build and become more than just being their property manager. Like, to me, that's also another huge selling point to Viza, is the fact that the relationship can go way beyond just us being the property manager. Yeah.
Even like Joe and Carlo Romano, like, those are, we like hanging out with them, getting dinner, and just we've done outside business with them, besides strictly property management. So that's what it's all about. You never know where a relationship will take you, or what referrals you'll get from taking care of that person the right way, Yep. But one thing we should talk about is probably the realtor referral program. Yeah. I think that I can be a real asset to a lot of real estate agents out there, because I don't know if a lot of real estate agents already have property management referral partners, but if they don't, I would love to be that person for them. And I feel like I am only an asset to them because I'm an extension of the services they're already offering their clients. Like, for example, right, there's no reason for them to attempt to manage a property just because they want to maintain that relationship when they're not actively buying, selling, or renting, right? So having the ability to refer us, stay in the mix, we could have them on the monthly or quarterly calls talking about the valuation of the property in as well as the performance of it from a rental standpoint, rental income and expense. But they can also make money from it too, right? If they want to continue leasing the property, we could work with them in that manner. Basically, we'll, manage the property for collection and lease renewal fees, and they could come in every time there's a vacant apartment. They'll come in and lease, do their thing. Again, staying in contact with the owner. We'll sign a non-compete for stuff like that. Or if they don't want anything to do with the leasing, they only want to be the person that is that landlord's choice when they want to sell their property, then we can pay them a referral fee on every new rental lease, like broker fee that we get for the duration of that management for the property they refer over to us.
Yeah. No, we've been talking about this, and I think now you had a meeting with somebody 2 days ago or yesterday, and I think they really saw the key points of it and what you're trying to get across there, and the benefit of having that desired property manager or the person that they're going to go to every time. So from that meeting, what would you say were his big takeaways from it?
Yeah, well, this particular person, he was working with someone in the same capacity, but that person seemed to have been untrustworthy because from what I know, they that person listed a property for sale and listed an apartment for rent on a unit that was referred over to them without his permission, So that's something that obviously you'd want to stop doing business with anybody who did that behind your back with somebody you brought into the picture. But that's not something that anybody that I would work with would have to worry about, because not only is selling property just not our business, we really generally never sell properties unless a client really, really wants us to. But we would sign non-compete agreements for that. So if you want to keep the leasing, you keep the leasing, and the same thing with the sales, right? We want to stay in our lane and be an asset to you. And if you even want to be the main, interface between us and the client, however involved you want to be, that's up to you,
Yeah, no, I love it. I guess kind of wrap it into a way of how Viza has a legal team.
Yeah. So that's one of the most important things. Chris Rodriguez from R&R Legal Advisors. He's the man. As much of a great attorney as a great friend, and he's done a lot as far as like setting up the business originally to where we are now. And so he works with us still on a monthly basis and handles all our landlord tenant stuff as well as general business matters. But we work with him very closely, and I like to think one of the main selling points of hiring us is that you have access to our legal team, because not only can we get it done at the right cost, but we get it done in a short time frame, right? Because a lot of people who are maybe landlord tenant attorneys, they're like operate at mass scale, or maybe they don't operate that fast, or again, you're constantly getting different people who are representing you, different paralegals, right? So I think we have a really good legal team, and generally we have a certain timeline guarantees where certain legal notices, like a notice to seize, notice to quit, they go out like guaranteed, I think 3 business days, and then filing of evictions for non-payment or something like that is like guaranteed 5 business days from the time that we submit it. So oftentimes it's done well before that, but at least when certain action has to be taken, no matter what, it's going to get done within that time frame, So I think that's very critical for us, and a great service that we're able to extend to our clients, because no matter what, it's an unfortunate part of the business. A lot of times you find yourself in that position where you have to go to court. And that's the other thing that we do for our clients too, going to court, keeping them out of it. We either make the decision ourselves if it's something that maybe there's a settlement agreement that's being worked out, where the tenants are going to agree to pay a certain amount over a number of months to pay off their balance in full, or a pay and leave agreement, they're going to pay a certain amount and then vacate on that date, or you just go to trial, you can't come to an understanding, and in effort to win a judgment to take possession of the apartment for unpaid rent. So those are all situations that we're very familiar with and very comfortable with because we've done it like so many times.
Yeah.
And there's situations where people generally can't afford to pay the rent, and you find, you really feel for them. In those cases, like, we do try to put them in contact with certain programs, like the DCA has some good programs for like people who are struggling. I mean, we've worked with a lot of different like organizations who are not Section 8, but very similar, or they'll at least give you one-time payments to help you get caught up on a lot of your back rent. So the people who genuinely, can't pay, we try to help them however we can. But sometimes that means, allowing them the time to find another apartment, something cheaper that they could more so afford, or put them into a different unit, right? You never know. But the other cases where you have to act really fast and decisively is somebody who's just simply not answering, doesn't care, and is basically just getting as much free rent as they possibly can.
Yeah. Have you run into situations like that in the last month, 2 months?
Yeah. We've had one tenant who moved in, they paid their first month rent, and that was it. They never contacted us after. We tried to text them, call them, email them, leave notes on their door, knock on the door, and they just quite honestly didn't. So at that point, it was like, okay, that's fine. We'll leave you alone. And, the court date came around, and I figured we would just go in there, get the judgment, and go home. So I was really shocked to see that they actually showed up. I'm like, I don't know what this person can have to say for themselves, So, yeah, and then it came to a point they were trying to negotiate as far as like timeline to pay, how long they were going to pay. And we just, at that point, there was no room for negotiation. We got a judgment for possession in that case. Didn't even want the money. However, it was like multiple thousands, multiple months outstanding. We just wanted to get possession of the apartment and move on, because clearly somebody who moves in, doesn't answer the phone, anything, doesn't pay $1 of rent, is not somebody who's going to pay that going forward.
Now, what is the downside on their end that is the biggest downside for them? Like, why wouldn't everybody do that? Now, is the biggest downside being that they'll have that eviction notice on their...
Yeah, because I don't know how most New Jersey landlords don't, want to rent to you if you have an eviction on your record. There's every complaint under the sky for why you were evicted for non-payment. Everybody has a story. Well, these people actually didn't. But most people have a story, and why accept that risk if you have 2, 3, 4 other families who weren't evicted for non-payment, paid their bills, have a good job, have a good review from their prior landlord? Why would somebody take that risk? It doesn't make sense, you know? So a person like that, I don't know. Maybe they go under different names, or they look for the unprofessional landlord who doesn't do any background checks, and it may take some time to find that person, but they'll come to... like unprofessional landlord will do a showing, and they'll be way overpriced, so they're not getting a lot of showing activity, and the people will go there and be like, oh, they don't care what the rent is because they're only going to pay one time. So they'll give you whatever you want, and they'll pay it in cash. Look, I have the money today, I'm ready to move in, let's do this. So they're able to work out deals in that way, and then those people get screwed.
Totally. All right, last thing, what would you say since 2017 it's been a company, 2017 or 2018?
It's February 2018.
All right. So since February 2018, what was the most rewarding experience that you've dealt with, whether it be with a tenant, a landlord, or anything in the business? Most rewarding. I
mean, I would honestly have to say when we brought our tenant Mary Waters back into her house at property, we had done a big renovation in her unit. And while that work was being done, she had to stay in a hotel. And it was really tough because it took a lot longer than anticipated. She had a dog, so like the hotel stay was expensive. We had to work something out financially to make that make sense for her. But she was living in like really, really poor conditions. Like you couldn't even believe somebody was living here. And we had done a renovation to the nines, the floors, kitchen, the whole 9 yards. And when she came back, man, like she was like the happiest you could be, And the fact that, we were willing to work something out with her, right? She was living there for like 15 years, you know what I mean? In a terrible apartment, in a landlord who couldn't care less. So when we did what we said we were going to do, which was work with her to put her in a hotel, put in all the renovations, bring her back in for the rent that was agreed upon. I mean, it was like, she was really, really happy about that. We had a good relationship. We still do today. She's still there. And we had a great testimonial from her.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because like you could do any deal and get any property under management, but these are people's lives you're dealing with, and seeing her grateful for dealing with us, working with us. I mean, like, you know, that's got to be the most rewarding thing.
Yeah. Yeah, no, totally. That was such a cool thing because I just rewatched that video because you were talking about it the other day.
Yeah.
And just being in there and seeing how genuinely she really does love the Viza team. She's like saying it and she's like, man, you guys just handle everything right away. And like, even if you can't, you let me know why. And that again goes back to the constant follow-up and submitting things into all proper platforms.
Yeah.
Always knowing that you're going to have that constant communication.
Yeah.
So
Because the thing is, what's going to keep you up at night is not the tenant who moved in, you're evicting, and, you know, they're going to steal $5,000, $6,000 from you. It's like, oh man, I wonder if this contractor got out there to take care of whatever Mary had going on today. You know what I mean? It's like, that should be the driving factor, you know, for a property manager.
Totally agree. I feel like that's
good.
That was pretty good. Great job, Tom. That was
Thank
awesome. All right. Well, that's episode 1 of the Viza podcast.
Top that.
yeah. We've done like four episodes so far, but it's never been as formal as this one, which is great. But shout out to Goose Media. We appreciate you. This is a beautiful spot. And until the next one.
Yeah.
We'll have both Chandler and Tyler on the next one.
Beautiful.